Today, we focus on a profound topic of family. While it's natural to seek comfort and care from our loved ones, the Stoics, such as Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus, offer us a different perspective. They teach that true freedom, peace, and happiness come from within, not from external relationships or circumstances. As we get older, many of us feel a natural pull toward our children. It's comforting to think that living near them will provide a sense of safety, care, and emotional support. After all, who better to rely on in old age than those we've spent our lives raising and nurturing? But from a Stoic perspective, this might be the wrong approach. Stoicism, the ancient philosophy founded on self-reliance and internal strength, teaches us that depending too much on others, even on family, can weaken our sense of autonomy and peace. Seneca, one of the leading Stoic philosophers, often reflected on the idea of self-reliance, especially in his later writings. In his letters to Lucilius, he emphasizes the importance of inner strength over external circumstances. He writes, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." When we seek external validation or support, whether from wealth, fame, or family, we are in essence admitting that we are not enough on our own. And for Stoics, this is a dangerous mindset because it leaves our happiness and tranquility in the hands of others. Living close to our children can create expectations. We may begin to assume that they will visit regularly, take care of us when we are sick, or provide emotional companionship. These expectations, while understandable, are outside of our control. And this is one of the core teachings of Stoicism, the division between what we can and cannot control. Epictetus, another Stoic master, famously said, "Some things are in our control and others are not. It is only by focusing on what is within our power, our thoughts, actions, and responses, that we can find true peace." If we tie our happiness to the actions or presence of our children, we risk losing our sense of self-reliance. What if they don't have the time or ability to visit as often as we'd like? What if they have their own families and responsibilities that take priority? The Stoic way would be to accept this reality, rather than becoming upset or disappointed by it. In fact, Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, reminds us that we must love people as they are, without trying to control them. Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, he wrote in his Meditations. But he also warned that we must not expect too much from others, because that can lead to unnecessary suffering. Instead of living in close physical proximity to our children, Stoicism would advise us to cultivate emotional and mental proximity. This means developing a sense of love and respect for them without expecting them to fulfill certain roles in our lives. Living far away from your children, or even alone, does not mean that you are emotionally distant. In fact, distance can sometimes strengthen relationships as it forces us to focus on the quality of our interactions rather than the frequency. Seneca's writings on aging are particularly relevant here. He often spoke of the importance of preparing oneself for the later stages of life by developing inner resources. In one of his letters he wrote, "Old age is a time for reflection, for finding peace within ourselves, not for relying on the help of others." This doesn't mean cutting ourselves off from family or friends, but rather finding a balance where we are not dependent on them for our happiness or sense of purpose. In Stoic philosophy, the goal is always to be as self-sufficient as possible, to find peace in our own minds rather than in the presence of others. Living close to your children might seem like a natural choice, but from a Stoic perspective, it could lead to the erosion of your independence. The Stoics believed that true freedom comes from being able to stand on your own, emotionally and mentally. This doesn't mean rejecting your children or their support, but it does mean ensuring that your sense of happiness is not tied to their actions or presence. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the only thing we truly own is our mind, our ability to think and act. Everything else is temporary, even our relationships. In conclusion, while living near your children might seem like a comforting choice, it can also create expectations and dependencies that go against the Stoic ideal of self-reliance. By focusing on cultivating inner strength and emotional independence, you can maintain a sense of peace and tranquility, regardless of where you live or who is nearby. As Seneca reminds us, "He who is brave is free." And in the Stoic sense, bravery comes from the ability to face life's challenges, including old age, with a sense of self-reliance and inner strength, rather than relying on the external world, even the world of family, for our sense of security. In Stoicism, the idea of emotional distance is often more valuable than physical closeness. While it may seem that living close to our children will strengthen our bonds and provide emotional security, the Stoics would argue that it is our emotional resilience and independence that matter most. Physical proximity can sometimes create an illusion of closeness, but it is the emotional bond and the shared values that truly connect us to our loved ones. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote extensively about the importance of understanding the nature of relationships and maintaining a balance between caring for others and preserving our own inner peace. He believed that while we are connected to others by fate, we must not let this connection become a source of dependency or emotional turmoil. "Men exist for the sake of one another," he wrote. "Teach them or bear with them." This means that we should strive to guide and support those we love, but we should not let our happiness depend on their actions or decisions. When we live close to our children, we might begin to expect them to fulfill certain roles that may not align with their own lives and responsibilities. These expectations can lead to disappointment and frustration when they are not met. For instance, you may expect your children to visit frequently, to provide emotional support, or to help with daily tasks. But what happens if they are unable to meet these expectations? According to Stoic philosophy, this is where emotional distance becomes important. It is not the physical distance that matters, but our ability to maintain our peace of mind, regardless of how much time we spend with our children. Epictetus, in his discourses, emphasized the importance of understanding what is within our control and what is not. He said, "It is not events that disturb people, but their judgments concerning them." In the context of family relationships, this means that it is not the distance from our children that causes us distress, but our expectations and judgments about how they should behave. If we can release these expectations and focus on what we can control, our own thoughts, actions, and responses, then we can maintain a sense of peace, even if we are not physically close to our family. The Stoics believed that true connection comes from shared values, not from physical presence. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the nature of relationships, reminding himself that love and respect are built on mutual understanding, not on proximity. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This means that our relationships are shaped by our thoughts and attitudes, not by the physical space we share. If we cultivate a mindset of love, respect, and understanding, we can maintain strong emotional connections with our children, even if we live far away from them. Furthermore, living close to our children can sometimes create emotional challenges that distance might actually help to alleviate. When we are physically close, it is easy to fall into patterns of dependence or to create expectations about how often we should see each other or how involved they should be in our lives. These expectations can lead to frustration when they are not met, and this frustration can strain the relationship. By maintaining a healthy emotional distance, we can avoid these potential conflicts and focus on the quality of our interactions rather than their frequency. Seneca, in his letters, often spoke about the importance of emotional independence. He believed that true peace comes from within, and that relying too much on others, whether for emotional support or companionship, can lead to disappointment. "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," he wrote. This means that the anxieties we create in our minds, such as the fear of being alone or the worry that our children are not providing enough support, are often far worse than the reality of the situation. By focusing on our own inner peace and emotional resilience, we can free ourselves from these imagined fears and find contentment regardless of our physical proximity to our family. In Stoic philosophy, the goal is always to cultivate inner strength and independence. This doesn't mean shutting ourselves off from others or refusing to accept help when it is needed. Rather, it means finding a balance where we can enjoy our relationships without becoming dependent on them for our happiness or sense of self-worth. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the best way to avenge yourself is to not be like that. In this context, it means that we should strive to avoid the emotional turmoil that comes from dependency, and instead focus on building strong, healthy relationships that are based on mutual respect and understanding. In the context of family, Stoicism provides a unique perspective that challenges many of the common assumptions we might have about the roles we play. We often think of ourselves as filling certain roles: parent, child, sibling, grandparent, with specific duties attached to them. But Stoic philosophy teaches us that while these roles are important, they should never override our primary duty: to cultivate virtue and maintain inner peace. Musonius Rufus, a key Stoic thinker, emphasized that family roles should not dictate our actions to the point where we lose sight of our own ethical and moral principles. The most important role we play in life is not as a parent, child, or sibling, Musonius taught, but as a human being committed to virtue. This is a powerful reminder that our primary responsibility is to ourselves, to our own character. We are first and foremost moral agents, responsible for our own actions and decisions before we are members of a family. But what does this mean in practice? It means that while we are naturally inclined to help and support our family members, we must be careful not to let those relationships dictate our happiness or sense of self-worth. Stoicism teaches that we should approach our roles within the family with wisdom and balance. It's natural to want to take care of our children and to support them, but we must also recognize the importance of maintaining our own autonomy and independence. Epictetus offers some helpful advice in this regard. He wrote, "Remember that you are an actor in a play. The playwright has assigned you a short role. If he wishes you to act a beggar, see that you act it skillfully." This metaphor extends beautifully to the roles we play within the family. We are actors given certain roles to play by fate. These roles, whether as parents, children, or siblings, are not permanent and should not define our entire existence. Instead, we should focus on playing our roles with skill and virtue, without becoming overly attached to them. The Stoics believed that one of the greatest sources of suffering is the attachment we form to these roles and the expectations we build around them. As parents, for example, we might expect our children to behave in certain ways, to follow the paths we envision for them, or to care for us in old age. But the Stoics remind us that these expectations are often unrealistic and outside of our control. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote extensively about the dangers of attachment, both to people and to roles. He emphasized that we must accept the flow of life as it is, without trying to bend it to our will. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So how should we approach our family relationships in a Stoic way? First, we must understand that our role in the family is just one aspect of our lives. It is important, yes, but it is not the only thing that defines us. The Stoics encourage us to fulfill our duties as parents, children, and siblings, but to do so with a sense of detachment. We must not become so wrapped up in these roles that we lose sight of our own individual path toward virtue and wisdom. Musonius Rufus gives a practical example of this. A man's duty is to do what is right, not what pleases others. In a family setting, this means that we should act out of a sense of what is good and just, rather than out of a desire to please our family members or to fulfill certain societal expectations. For example, a parent might feel pressured to help their adult child financially, even if it puts them in a difficult situation. A Stoic parent, however, would weigh the situation carefully, considering what is truly virtuous and right, rather than acting out of guilt or obligation. Seneca, another influential Stoic, often wrote about the importance of maintaining a balance between love for one's family and personal autonomy. In his letters to Lucilius, Seneca advises that we should love our family members deeply, but without becoming dependent on them for our happiness or sense of self-worth. He wrote, "We are born into relationships, but we must not let those relationships rule us." This means loving without attachment, caring without expectation, and supporting without becoming dependent. As we advance in age, it's natural to confront new challenges, both physical and emotional. The Stoics viewed aging not as something to fear, but as a stage in life that offers new opportunities for growth, reflection, and wisdom. Rather than lamenting the loss of youth, Stoic philosophers like Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus saw old age as an inevitable and even beneficial part of life's cycle. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, often wrote about the process of aging. In one letter, he reflected, "Old age has its pleasures if one knows how to use it." He believed that, in many ways, the latter part of life allows us to slow down and focus on what truly matters: our character, our wisdom, and our inner peace. This is a time when we are free from the distractions of youth and the burdens of ambition, allowing us to engage in the philosophical work of understanding ourselves and the world around us. The Stoics also remind us that aging is a natural process, one that should be embraced rather than resisted. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, advises, "Do not act as if you are going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." This reflection is not meant to be morbid, but rather a reminder that our time is limited and that we should use it wisely. Aging then becomes a prompt for action, urging us to focus on virtue and on what truly matters, rather than being caught up in superficial concerns. The Stoic concept of living in accordance with nature is particularly relevant here. To the Stoics, nature includes the life cycle of birth, aging, and death. They believed that resisting this natural order would only lead to suffering. By accepting the inevitability of aging, we free ourselves from the fear of growing older and instead use this time as an opportunity for further self-development. As Epictetus taught, it is not events that disturb people, but their judgments about them. Old age, like any other phase of life, is not inherently good or bad. It is our perception of it that determines our experience. Seneca believed that the decline of physical strength that comes with age does not diminish a person's value. In fact, he argued that aging gives us more time to focus on the cultivation of inner virtues like wisdom, courage, and patience. Physical vitality may fade, but the strength of our mind and character can continue to grow, often flourishing as we get older. This is one of the key insights of Stoicism. The things that truly matter, our thoughts, actions, and virtues, are always within our control, no matter our age. As we approach the later stages of life, Stoicism encourages us to reflect on our relationship with time. Rather than fearing the passage of time, we should view it as an opportunity to refine our character and deepen our understanding of the world. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled Rome during turbulent times, constantly reminded himself to focus on the present moment, confine yourself to the present. This teaching is particularly valuable as we age, helping us avoid regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. Another important aspect of aging, according to Stoicism, is the acceptance of death. The Stoics were not afraid of death. They saw it as a natural part of life. Seneca famously said, "He who learns how to die unlearns slavery," meaning that by coming to terms with death, we free ourselves from the fear that often limits our capacity to live fully. In this way, old age can be seen as a time to embrace the Stoic idea of memento mori, the constant reminder of death, as a tool for living a more meaningful, virtuous life. In conclusion, Stoicism offers us a roadmap for navigating the challenges and opportunities of aging. Rather than seeing old age as a decline, the Stoics encourage us to view it as a time for inner growth, reflection, and the continued cultivation of virtue. By accepting the natural flow of life and focusing on what is within our control, we can face the later stages of life with dignity, wisdom, and peace. One of the fundamental teachings of Stoicism is the concept of detachment. The Stoics believed that attachment to external things, whether material possessions, circumstances, or even people, can lead to suffering. This is not to say that we should not care for our loved ones, but rather that we must learn to love without being overly attached or dependent on them for our happiness. This teaching is particularly relevant as we grow older and consider our relationships with our children. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, emphasized that we must distinguish between what is within our control and what is not. He famously said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." In the context of family relationships, this means that while we can love and care for our children, we cannot control their actions or decisions. Becoming too attached to their presence, behavior, or support can lead to disappointment when they do not meet our expectations. Over-attachment to our children, especially in old age, can create unrealistic expectations about how they should act or how much time they should devote to us. We may begin to expect that they will visit frequently, care for us in times of need, or provide us with companionship. However, Stoicism teaches us that these expectations are dangerous because they place our happiness in the hands of others, something we cannot control. Seneca, in his letters, often warned against the dangers of attachment. He wrote, "You must live for yourself, not for others." This does not mean rejecting relationships, but rather ensuring that we do not depend on them for our sense of self-worth or happiness. Stoic detachment is about recognizing the impermanence of all things, including our relationships, and learning to find peace within ourselves rather than relying on external sources of comfort. In the context of old age, this teaching is particularly important. Many parents, especially as they grow older, begin to rely on their children for emotional support, companionship, and care. While it is natural to want to maintain close relationships with our children, Stoicism encourages us to do so without becoming dependent on them. Epictetus reminds us that true freedom comes from within. No man is free who is not master of himself. The Stoic practice of amor fati, the love of fate, is also relevant here. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often wrote about accepting the course of life as it unfolds without resistance or complaint. He said, "Everything that happens, happens as it should, and if you observe carefully, you will find this to be so." In family relationships, this means accepting the choices and paths that our children take, even if they do not align with our own desires or expectations. By loving our fate, we can find peace in the fact that we cannot control the lives of others, but we can control how we respond to them. Stoic detachment is not about indifference or apathy. It is about maintaining a healthy emotional distance that allows us to love and support our family without becoming entangled in their lives in a way that leads to suffering. By practicing detachment, we can enjoy our relationships without being weighed down by expectations or fears of loss. As Seneca said, the greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not. In conclusion, Stoicism teaches us that over-attachment to our children can lead to unnecessary suffering. By practicing detachment and focusing on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, we can maintain strong, loving relationships without becoming dependent on them for our happiness. Stoic detachment allows us to love freely, without fear or expectation, and to find peace within ourselves, no matter the circumstances. As we reflect on the teachings of Stoicism and how they apply to living close to our children in old age, we can see that this ancient philosophy offers timeless wisdom for navigating the complexities of family relationships and aging. Stoicism teaches us that true peace, freedom, and happiness come from within, not from external circumstances or relationships. By focusing on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, we can cultivate a sense of inner strength and resilience that allows us to face the challenges of aging with grace and dignity. Whether we live close to our children or far away, Stoicism reminds us that our happiness should not depend on their presence or behavior. Instead, we should focus on cultivating emotional independence, practicing detachment, and living in accordance with nature. Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus all emphasize the importance of self-reliance and inner peace. As we grow older, these teachings become even more relevant. Rather than relying on our children for support, we should use this time to reflect on our own lives, to continue cultivating virtue, and to find peace within ourselves. As Seneca wrote, "Old age is not something to be feared. It is a time for reflection and for the enjoyment of the wisdom we have gained over the years." As we reflect on the teachings of Stoicism and how they apply to living close to our children in old age, we can see that this ancient philosophy offers timeless wisdom for navigating the complexities of family relationships and aging. The fundamental lesson that Stoicism imparts is that true peace, freedom, and happiness are rooted in inner strength, not in external circumstances, material possessions, or even the presence of loved ones. One of the most enduring principles of Stoicism is the importance of cultivating self-reliance. For the Stoics, being self-reliant means accepting that life is unpredictable and that we must prepare ourselves mentally to face whatever comes our way. Whether we live close to our children or far from them, Stoicism teaches that our happiness should never depend on others. Instead, it is found within our own ability to accept reality as it is and maintain control over our own thoughts and actions. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, emphasized that our lives are shaped by the quality of our thoughts. He believed that if we focus on what is within our control, our mind, our actions, and our responses to events, we can remain undisturbed by external circumstances. He said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This is an essential Stoic truth. It is not where we live or who we live with that determines our peace, but how we approach life mentally and emotionally. In the context of old age, this principle becomes even more critical. While it is natural to seek comfort and support from family, Stoicism reminds us that true independence comes from within. We should prepare ourselves to face the challenges of aging, not by relying on others, but by cultivating the inner virtues of courage, patience, and wisdom. Living near our children can foster feelings of security, but it can also create expectations and dependencies that go against Stoic ideals of self-sufficiency. As we've explored throughout this video, Stoic detachment does not mean rejecting relationships, but rather balancing love with emotional independence. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can control how we respond to them. By practicing emotional detachment, we learn to love without relying on our children for our happiness or fulfillment. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus warned against being overly attached to roles within the family. He believed that our first duty is to our own virtue and character, and that we should not let familial obligations or expectations dictate our sense of self-worth. Loving without attachment, as the Stoics advise, allows us to maintain strong, healthy relationships with our children while preserving our independence and inner peace. In addition to promoting self-reliance, Stoicism encourages us to embrace the natural flow of life, including the aging process. The Stoics viewed aging as a natural part of the human experience, one that should be embraced rather than feared. Seneca, in his letters, wrote that old age is full of pleasure if you know how to use it. He believed that the later years of life are an opportunity to focus on inner growth, to reflect on the lessons of life, and to enjoy the wisdom we've accumulated over time. The Stoics also emphasized the importance of accepting death as part of life's journey. Marcus Aurelius frequently reflected on death in his meditations, not to inspire fear, but to encourage living a life of purpose and virtue. He wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." This reminder is particularly relevant in old age, as it encourages us to focus on the present moment and live fully, without being weighed down by regrets or anxieties about the future. In the final stage of life, the Stoics teach us to focus on the virtues that truly matter: wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. These are the qualities that remain with us, even as physical abilities decline. As we grow older, we should strive to cultivate these virtues, drawing strength from our ability to face life's challenges with grace and dignity. In conclusion, Stoicism offers a powerful framework for living well in old age, whether or not we live close to our children. The teachings of Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius remind us that true freedom and happiness come from within. By focusing on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses to life's events, we can navigate the complexities of aging and family relationships with peace and resilience. As we move through the later stages of life, Stoicism encourages us to focus on inner growth, to practice detachment without losing love, and to embrace the natural flow of life with courage and acceptance. By doing so, we can live our final years with a sense of purpose, wisdom, and tranquility, knowing that we have lived in accordance with nature and with virtue. As Seneca wrote, "The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach." By following the Stoic path, we can ensure that we live well, no matter our age, location, or circumstances. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Stoic wisdom and the challenges of aging. I hope these insights help you reflect on how to live with more peace, independence, and strength, regardless of where life takes you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Stoic teachings and life lessons. Check out my other videos for deeper dives into Stoic philosophy and how it can guide you through modern life. See you next time, and remember, true freedom begins within.